All right, Jet fans, we got a rapid reaction. Game over. What an interesting game. It was kind of boring for a long time, then kind of got exciting there at the end, and the Jets pull it out. In the end, 27-24. Now, of course, the draft people are going to say, ha ha, you won, and you're supposed to lose because you got to move up in the draft. Right now in Tankathon rankings, where we dropped all the way to 6th, we'll see how that works out. But remember, we have a lot of ammunition. Now, if the regime falls in love with one of these college quarterbacks, we could very easily trade up with Tennessee. Tennessee has a quarterback. New Orleans might have a quarterback. The Giants have their quarterback. So those are the top 3 teams right now, for example, whereas Vegas and Cleveland probably need a quarterback, although who knows? Las Vegas could stick with Geno and say, hey, wait a minute, it was what's his name, the fired OC, his fault. He was a drunk bum. Get that guy out of here. So if we had a regular offensive coordinator with Geno, we could make it work. Cleveland might say, hey, Shedeur Sanders is playing okay. I didn't watch that game, but I looked at the box score, which is always dangerous to do box score scouting. But the box score looked okay for Shedeur, not terrible. But again, you got to watch the game. I was watching the Jet game. So they may or may not, but we could jump over them. We could go all the way to number 1 if Tennessee winds up number 1 because they're sticking with Cam Ward. So I wouldn't worry about that. I'd rather have a team that had a bunch of wins, that had, something going on, because what you really want is you want everybody to you want it to be so that everybody looks at it and goes, if the Jets only get a quarterback who can run the offense and a few pieces here and there, they could make the jump from here to, that's kind of the feeling you want going into the offseason, in my opinion. Now, getting into this game, Tyrod Taylor, was it a wonderful game? No. We had some problems with their pass rush, I'll tell you that much. We only had 172 yards passing, and 102 of those went to Adonai Mitchell. So Mitchie and Mechie are really making their impact felt. Now, Mechie had a couple of drops in this game. No bueno. But even with that, it still had 4 other catches for 19 yards. So we just, drops. I mean, you see drops. You see CeeDee Lamb drops. You watch these other games, people have drops. All right, so I'm not going to kill John Mechie. Hopefully it doesn't continue. Let's get our hands on the ball, Mr. Mechie. But in this game, you saw Adonai Mitchell, 12 targets, 8 receptions, 102 yards, and a touchdown. And now here's the key. You keep hearing Coach, and it makes perfect sense, say A.D. Mitchell, whenever they ask him about A.D. Mitchell, he says, he says a bunch of stuff, and then he says he's a perfect X receiver, which is very, very interesting, because who's missing in all of this? There's a man who used to go to Ohio State, and he's been injured, and he's going to come back, and his name is Garrett Wilson. Now, Garrett Wilson, so if you think about the configuration, let's say Mechie stops dropping the ball. If he keeps dropping it, then we got to find a different slot receiver. But let's just look optimistically and say Mechie can be our slot receiver next year. Okay, that's wide receiver 3, slot receiver. In your 11 personnel package, he's in the slot mostly. They move around, but just for simplicity's sake. A.D. Mitchell then becomes your X. Now you want A.D. Mitchell to play the X and Garrett Wilson to play the Y because, again, generally speaking, it's more complicated than this, but generally speaking, your X receiver is the one who's going to face more press man and has to defeat that press man with strength and leverage and size, which is what Mitchie has. And then you want Garrett Wilson, shifty, quick, nimble of foot, to be the Y because that person more often gets off coverage, free releases, beautiful for the kind of player that Garrett is. So if you think about it, these 2 trades we made, I mean, we got John Mechie for nothing, for free. We just got him for free. Now, maybe he'll continue to drop the ball. Maybe he won't be good enough. But even so, we saved money on the cap by getting rid of Michael Carter, who was a declining player. We were going to cut him anyway. We got an improved draft pick in 27. All right. And we got a guy who could be our starting slot receiver next year. What the hell? That's a hell of a trade. And then in the Sauce Gardner trade, we pick up a couple of firsts and our X receiver, starting X. I mean, if all goes well now, we got to see how they perform. We don't want to make too many proclamations right now. It's very early. But if A.D. Mitchell keeps playing like this and John Mechie plays like he did in the previous game, and Mechie was okay in this game. He just dropped a couple. Not great, but what are you going to do? But hopefully he stops with that. And then you have your starting three right there. And then Arian Smith's going to be on the team. I don't know why he was inactive today. And, what else? Isaiah Williams is on the team. You saw what Isaiah Williams and Kene Nwango. Williams is under contract. Nwango, we got to sign him. But those guys, they got to come back. They got to come back. They must come back. And so Isaiah Williams is going to be in the wide receiver room. Occasional, jet sweep. You throw him and when we threw him passes this year, he caught him. Great for a fourth receiver to be your punt returner, kick returner. Perfect. And then we just need one more. And it doesn't have to be, it could be someone we take a flyer on in the fourth round. It doesn't have to be a high draft pick, which allows us then to go ahead and make a trade if we need to, or just stock up the defense. We need to load up on the defense because the defense just isn't good enough. As I've said for a long, long time, we've made some improvements. Malachi Moore led the team in tackles in this game, 10 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. PFF has preliminary grades out right now. Guys who didn't play well, according to PFF, grading anyway. Isaiah Oliver, Marcelino McCrary Ball, A.Z. Thomas, Kalen Saunders, Jay Tufele, Quincy Williams, even Juwan Briggs didn't get a good grade here, and these are preliminary, unofficial. Sherwood. So there's a lot of improvement that we need to have happen with safety position, defensive tackle position, edge position. There's a lot of guys we need to get, and you can only do so much in free agency. So we'll have to see about that. On the broadcast, they were saying we had an interception. They kept showing that Kirk Cousins had an interception. He did not. That was weird. And the broadcasters even said, outside of that interception, blah, blah, he didn't have an interception. So strange. These people don't know what's going on. Nick Folk Hero, sign him for next year. Why not? But you also saw on the other side Kirk Cousins. I think, even though he wasn't particularly great, I think if you look at Kirk Cousins, if Atlanta decides, now I wouldn't trade for him, but if Atlanta decides to move on from him for cap reasons, remember, they can save $22.5 million by cutting him. And maybe they want to go that way. I mean, now they're 4-8. They're not going anywhere this year. Again, people are going to have the pitchforks out for Raheem Morris. So, and probably Terry Fontenot too. So it depends what that owner wants to do. Is he going to have patience with Mr. Morris and Mr. Fontenot? And then either way it goes, I mean, if they bring in a new regime, they probably just let Cousins go, pick a quarterback in the draft, and have the new quarterback in the draft compete with Penix, I guess. I don't know. But if he were a free agent, I would look to sign him as a bridge and say, look, we're going to take a young guy, but we're not sure about him, Kirk. So we're going to look to you to start. We either keep Fields or somebody wants to trade for him, fine, then sign another guy, another veteran, a Gardner Minshew type, just to be there. And we could say to Kirk Cousins, look, we anticipate you'll be the starter, but we are going to draft a first-round quarterback if that's what the plan is. So you're our bridge, but you'll get some starting opportunity here, and but we are going to see how it goes with young fella, the rookie, and if the rookie impresses, he's going to come in and take your job if we think, hey, we got our long-term guy here. That may appeal to him. It may not. It depends on how many other offers he has. Like, for example, he might be able to go back to Minnesota, depending on what they do with their young fella, um, Mr. JJ, and also Mr. Brosmer. Have to see how he performs today. But Brees Hall, 68 more yards added to the ledger. It was hard sledding today. They didn't really respect our passing game. Plus, our two tackles, especially Mambu, had a tough game. Without looking at grades or anything, I just, eye test Membu, couple of penalties, and he got beat a couple of times. So not his best game. Going to happen against teams with ferocious pass rush like this. So, but we were able to survive it. Tyrod, did a good job moving around with his legs and doing what he needed to do, even though not a great game. But Brees Hall, 68 more yards added to the ledger of a nice season. He's now over 800 yards rushing on the year, and he added only 8 yards on the passing game, so we didn't really run too many screens or anything for him. I think the screen game is probably the last thing to come online for us this year, probably because we didn't focus on it with Fields as the QB, and it's hard to make those kind of adjustments in season. But we did give up a ton of rushing yards. We gave up a ton of yards in general. The defense was not good. Bijan Robinson, 167 is a lot, but 142 of them went to Bijan. So I thought we gave up more. 234 yards passing. So, not completely terrible. We buckled down when we needed to, got some sacks when we needed to. A couple of sacks on the ledger here. One went to Michael Clemens. One went to Tony Adams. They did not give a sack to, that's another thing they got wrong, to Will McDonald. I guess they said that was an incomplete pass. On the broadcast, they said he was in the grass, but I guess not officially, no. I was wondering about that. So that was not a sack for Will McDonald, even though maybe it should have been. But we got good pressure there. And overall, you see some improvement with the defense, but it's still not good. Mason Taylor looks like a reliable receiver. That's good news, though he only got 2 catches in this game. But again, we only had 19 completions, and 8 of them went to A.D. Mitchell. So similar to what we thought was going to happen in the beginning of the year, there's not a lot to go around. And that sums it up. Let's hope we can continue to build on this. Like I said, I wouldn't worry too much about the draft position because we can trade up with anybody. We could trade. It's funny. We could trade a 1 and a 2. Now, one thing we should root for is for the Colts to lose, and they lost today. 8-4 they are now. They lost to the Texans, as the Texans are starting to catch fire a little bit. Daniel Jones may be coming back to earth, but bad news for the Colts. Sauce Gardner got injured, unfortunately. Yeah, he didn't even have any stats. But I saw in the highlights he got injured. He was walking off something with his calf, so hopefully he's all right. But because the more they lose, the better that draft pick becomes, and that's a first-round pick in the back of the first round this year. Right now, it's all the way, it used to be 32nd, then it was 28th. Now, as of right now, this moment, it's 26th. So, if they continue to lose, that's a pick we have. We also have 2 second-round picks, so you could put together a first and a second this year. That would almost certainly get you up to number 1 for Tennessee. I would think if they wanted something, we have 3 first-round picks in 27. So if they wanted a 27 first, now it depends on if we love the kid that we want. If we do, we have the ammunition. If not, well, then I don't know. Then it's just, best player available each time we pick, load up the team, see what veteran we're able to get as a bridge, and then maybe somewhere in the 4th, 5th round, take a flyer on somebody just in case, and then, and have it be quarterback 3, and then frickin' next year go for somebody, I guess. Well, yeah, we'll have to see. It can get pretty tricky around here. Let's just check, see what if there's any late breaking news to react to. No, they interviewed A.D. Mitchell, so they're talking about what A.D. Mitchell said after the game. He had a career day. Quantez Stiggers said the Falcons gave him the cold shoulder at a college all-star game. Okay. Well, you got to love Quantez Stiggers. I mean, this is a guy who doesn't do much on defense, but he's a special teams ace. He basically has developed into a Justin Hardy, essentially. you know, uh, so you got to love Quantez Stiggers, and hopefully he can be good enough to be a backup cornerback at least. That's good roster spot usage. Special teams ace backup corner. That's something Justin Hardy could not do. I think Stiggers could do that. So. All right, we'll have to see. There's nothing else headline worthy, but there you go. Jets win 27-24. Lane Kiffin goes to LSU. The Colts lose, improving our second draft pick as we slide down the Tankathon rankings a little bit, but we move up on the back end. Problem with, I got a comment on the channel earlier today. Some people are talking about, why don't we just do what the Giants did with Jackson Dart, picking him, in the 20s, of the first round, and just pick the best player available with your top pick, your high pick. Problem with that is there's only going to be three good. It depends who declares, but let's say Mendoza, Moore, and Simpson come into the draft. Those guys are all going to be gone by the time wherever our second first round pick comes. So the next bucket of guys is not going to be a Jackson Dart type that you think can win. I mean, it's going to be the Carson Becks and the Texas Tech quarterback and, Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik. Do you want any of those guys? None of those guys are as good as Jackson Dart as a prospect. So it's a conundrum. Well, we'll have all off season to argue about that. And with that being said, I will see you